The number of tourists in Macau fell to virtually zero last month from a year earlier. The pandemic saw visitor numbers decline by more than 99%. Just 22,000 people visited the city in June, and that was an improvement on the month before. Trade expert Nick Marro from the Economist Intelligence Unit outlines when things might get better for Macau.
Well, we'll see a bit of that mild recovery likely continuing through the rest of the year. I think the fact that Macau and Guangdong have announced plans to relax some of the border restrictions is positive. That's probably going to put a bit of a floor under future tourism growth through the remainder of the summer and likely through the remainder of 2020. But again, that year-on-year comparison is going to be pretty disastrous for the economy. Really, the territory's gambling and casino sector is very, very heavily exposed to tourist flows from China in particular. And so even if we do see a recovery, it's going to be really in month-on-month terms. We're not going to see Macau emerge from the throes of this pandemic anytime soon. Diversification has always been a big feature of the policy agenda in Macau, particularly over the past 10 years. The city knows that it is way too over-reliant on gambling. But the diversification that's occurred has been into other very tourism-dependent sectors. So things like conferences and events, sporting events, various other things that really still depend on visitor expenditure. And there are a number of reasons for that. But one of the big things is just the demographic structure in Macau. The local population just isn't big enough to really organically sustain a lot of economic activity or to replace economic activity that's been lost by tourists. But more structurally important is the talent landscape. This idea that Macau doesn't really have the same type of talent base that we have in Hong Kong or Shenzhen or Zhuhai. I think that as Macau recovers from the crisis or focuses on its post-crisis recovery, it's going to look at addressing that talent deficiency to potentially develop services strength in areas like potentially financial services or consulting or legal services. But that's going to be a long-term story. That's going to be something that we're not going to see the fruits of really until the next 3 to 5 years under a really ambitious timeline. And so even if we expect that that's going to be the ultimate destination, the journey is still going to be very tough in the interim.